Friends. I could say a lot of things about our next guest. I could say she's courageous. I could say she's tenacious. I could say she's brilliant. But what I'm going to say is let's meet Kendra and hear her story because this girl is tired. We're going to take the R off that and we're going to say, this girl is tired. Kendra is a single mother with a full-time job, parenting not one, but two boys on the spectrum. This girl is tired. And after the intro, we're going to dig into her story and see exactly why Kendra is tired. Hello, Kendra. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I'm well. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so excited to have you today, and I cannot wait to dig right into your mothering journey. So, without further ado, can you get us started?
Sure. Well, I'm a mom of two boys, both on the autism spectrum. I my youngest is 6 and my oldest will be 8 in May. So they're kind of close together. I think about maybe 20 months apart. Um, so my oldest son, Dion, uh, he was he never really developed. Typically, I knew that he was different even as an infant. He would always cry anytime we would change clothes. He hated having his diaper changed. He would just scream incessantly. Um, he hated combing of the hair. That was always a horrible thing. And then I noticed that he didn't know when he was full. He couldn't really tell. So you would have to just stop him from eating or drinking. Um, and we had a few words, uh, maybe around 6 months that we could kind of tell. But after that, no talking, just repetitive sounds.
Mhm.
And so I was familiar with autism, being a teacher,
Mhm.
and my mom has taught sped for 25
Mhm.
plus years. So I was familiar with autism, and I've been around people with autism. And so that thought kept crossing my mind, but everyone tells you, they'll grow out of it, or kids do things in their own time, so you just have to wait. And so I did. And at the time, I was married to their father. And so he also was not open to the idea that, our firstborn had autism
Wow.
until, he reached the age of 3, and we were, no words. We were stuck on a few foods. Just real sensory issues. He would uh gag at the feeling of like fuzzy things. He hated blankets and teddy bears and all of that stuff. That was not a thing. He would scream in the car if we stopped. As long as the car was moving, we're good. But if the car stopped, then the crying. And so um I was like, we should definitely get him tested. And so we did. And that was a really difficult process
Mhm.
for anyone who has been through an autism testing. scenario where you have all these doctors and everyone is it was like a panel of doctors that evaluate your child, and then they pretty much hand you this packet that tells you all the things that your child will never be able to do. And so we got a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, and then
Right.
from there they were like, here's this pamphlet about some facts of autism, and that was it. And
Okay.
so
I want to
mhm,
stop here for a second because I want to address something that you said.
mhm.
I want people who may be watching who do not have children on the autism spectrum, have not gone through the experience of a behavioral assessment to go back and sit in that, because you just said something about you're in this room and you have a myriad of doctors, different types of doctors, you know, looking at your child, assessing your child, and you just gave words to it. It's a very uncomfortable space, even if you have doctors with really great bedside manners. The fact that you are there and someone is assessing your child from top to bottom, it is a very uncomfortable feeling. And it's a 5 to 6 hour experience. How long was your behavior assessment?
It was about 6 hours
So
because
it was
they
6
wanted to do, like,
hours.
and then we had to go different places, so we had to start out at, like, a medical doctor first,
Mhm.
and so go through that whole thing, and then they ship you off somewhere else, and then you're observed behind like you see this in like movies where people observe from behind those two-way mirror things, and someone's watching, but and your kid isn't really aware of watching. They're just doing what they do, play. And so it was just it was really difficult because I'm used to the way that he plays,
Mm.
and I'm thinking that, he's just being him. He's matching the colors and,
Right.
doing the things. And so I'm like, okay, well, this seems pretty normal and everything. But on their end, it's like, no, no, this is not, no.
Right.
And you could just kind of see it in their faces, and you could kind of feel it from
Wow.
the way they would ask questions. And then
Mhm.
sometimes the doctors can be really um demeaning in the way that they speak to you as the parent, as if you did something wrong, or as if they you don't understand what they're trying to tell you. And if you say that your child can do things, and then if they don't immediately do it, then they don't believe you. That's kind of the worst part. Because our kids do what they do when they
Right.
feel like they feel led to do it. So they don't always show skills on demand, and so that was it. The whole thing was just really difficult. I remember they wanted to see his reaction to playing in sand, and he
Mhm.
didn't like sand, and I was telling them that he didn't like it. And so when they were trying to put his feet in the sand, then he was trying to get away, and he got sand in his eyes. And I was like, ugh, this is just all bad. But we got through that, and we got the diagnosis and everything, and then from there you're pretty much just we were kind of left up to our own devices to figure out what happens next.
Okay. So when you say you were left to your own devices, did you not receive a referral of, what he might need next?
No.
So what did you do?
uh Researched. I went to Google to see what we should do, because he was already in speech therapy,
Okay.
because he wasn't speaking it. And so and we were already in first steps, because the early intervention, because he wasn't talking, he wasn't verbal yet.
Right.
And so from there, I researched everything that I could find about autism and what people typically do, what's recommended, what will help.
Mhm.
And then I learned about OT, so I asked for that. And So we were doing speech and OT, and then it was a while before I knew about ABA therapy because there's one, the whole controversy behind it that some parents don't agree with it, and then
Mhm.
two, in the state that I live in, ABA therapy is considered an elective therapy. Um,
Oh,
and so doctors don't readily just recommend it because it is elective, and then you would have to pay for it out of pocket at the time. And so um, I learned about that and tried to find somewhere that would, take us. And then I discovered the whole waiting list thing because
okay.
there
So
are
let me ask you a quick question here. So were you in a larger city or a smaller town?
smaller.
Boom. Okay. So a lot of areas, because I was trying to, conceptualize your experience because many of the metropolitan areas, they'll have centers and they're all inclusive. So you go one stop and you get everything. But if you're in a smaller town,
You have to
okay.
go
I'm
from
sure.
place to place and piece together your therapies. And so we were driving. Speech and OT was in one place, thankfully. So we were able to do that in the city we lived in. um but the ABA therapy was going to be the closest one was an hour and a half away. um
Mm-hmm.
but when they were opening up what is it called, a satellite location that was a little bit closer. It's about 30 minutes away, so we were able to get in on that front end of the satellite location.
Mm-hmm.
um but I have to backtrack a little bit because I
Okay.
have to. So that one was diagnosed, and I was pregnant with the my youngest.
Okay.
And so when, of course, I had the same fear that I'm gonna have another kid with autism. I'm already trying to figure out what is going on with, what do I do, am I doing the right things? And then on
Mhm.
top of that, I'm preparing for another baby. um and so I just kind of brushed that part off and was like, that doesn't really happen. And at the time, I didn't know anybody that had multiples, with
Right.
autism. I didn't really know about the genetic component of it. I didn't know, as much as I know now. And
Mhm.
so I was like, well, that that's kind of far off, and I don't have to really be concerned with it. So I can kind of focus on my oldest, and just when the baby comes, he'll just be baby. And so my youngest was born, a few couple months late after my oldest was diagnosed.
Mhm.
And he was a happy baby and everything. He wasn't um he didn't cry and things like my oldest. So I was like, okay, this is good. But he was like the polar opposite. He didn't cry at all. He was just real chill, and nothing really bothered him. Like, he, even with the, you have to do the exit hearing exam with the kids, and
Mhm.
they had to make sure all of that's good. And I had to bring him back like 3 times because he just couldn't be bothered to he wouldn't react to any of the sounds. He just, you know,
Like, I'm chilling.
just chilling. And so I thought he was just like a relaxed kid. He's gonna be the easy baby. And I would, even when I would try to rock him to sleep, I like to hold. You hold the
Mhm.
baby and you rock him, and he'd just be sitting there looking at me. And he would never go to sleep. And then finally, I just got tired when I'm like, I'm gonna just put him in the bed and just let him. And that's how he wanted to go to sleep ever since. He did not want to be rocked. He didn't want to be held. He didn't
Wow.
want to be hugged and all of that. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just, gonna be his own person at an early age. But the same the same pattern started to form around the 6 month age. So he never talked. He never made any words. So there was like no, he was fine and then he wasn't regression type thing.
Mhm.
Um, so he never talked. He walked late. I thought he wasn't gonna walk. He was almost a year and a half before he even decided he was gonna try
Right.
to walk. And then here comes the we're stuck on the foods, and I was like, okay, all right.
Mhm.
So some bells started going off, and my husband at the time, he didn't definitely wasn't trying to hear that, that there's another kid with autism. And the doctors were even like, well, maybe he's just copying after his older brother and he sees what he's doing.
Mhm.
Um, but uh I was like, it's not, I don't think that's what that is. And so I just kind of had to come to terms with it. Um and just say, we're gonna go ahead and get tested. So he wasn't quite 3 yet. Be
Okay.
um because I already had a son on the spectrum, then they allowed me to go ahead and have my youngest tested at 2.
Okay.
Um, and so we were able to. He was also diagnosed formally and everything, and it was a little bit different as far as the process. We went to I took him to a different place,
Okay.
um, and so they were a little more personable and empathetic, and it
Okay.
made it a little bit easier as far as the process goes.
Okay.
But then I'm still one just dealing with, well, it's grief. I'm gonna just say it. Dealing with the grief that I have 2 children on the spectrum, and
Right.
I don't know what life for them or for us as a family looks like at this point, and I don't see what it looks like in a future because I've never encountered anything like this before. I don't know anyone um, who has children on the spectrum. There was nobody in my family formally diagnosed, but of course, after you have children with autism, you see all the autism, sometimes. Yeah.
Characteristics. Mhm.
So, but it was uncharted territory. Um,
Mhm.
and then on top of that, I was separated and going through a divorce.
Mhm.
Um, and I had to move back in with my mom, and so it was a whole lot of like life changes at once, on top of trying to figure out and navigate autism. But it was easier the second time around navigating the system. So um, getting the Medicaid application, I knew to go ahead and do that. I knew to, do the speech therapy and the first steps and the occupational therapy, and to get them in ABA, and to go ahead and set
Mhm.
up IEP meetings, even if we weren't going to, go to the classroom. The district still had to provide services and all of that, which a lot of parents, did stuff that parents, just didn't really know, and stuff I had to just kind of find out. Um,
So I'm going to jump in and explain what you're saying. My situation was similar because my son received his diagnosis after 3, but before he started
mhm,
school. So Kendra is saying that if you live in an area, well, wherever you live, the public school, once a diagnosis is received, it's not just autism. He had it for speech and language as well
mhm,
before his autism diagnosis. But you can get an IEP through the school system, and then you're required to provide transportation. So I know I was at the time. You're required to provide transportation, but you are entitled to get services at the school
correct.
via IEP. So even if your child is home,
Mhm,
not yet in school or home, you can go to the school that you're zoned for. They can be assessed there. They can receive services there, educational services. And that's after 3 years old. Okay.
correct. Right. So that's what so we were getting all of it. Like we were going to the school district and getting that little 30 minutes of speech in OT. Because they were first diagnosed as, well, through the school they had a ruling of developmentally delayed because they were nonverbal at the time, before we got an autism diagnosis. And then once we got the autism diagnosis, then we had to do the reval so they could put their formal diagnosis on the IEP. And so from there, we were getting the speech and the OT at the school, and then I was taking them to the private speech and the OT, and then we were doing ABA, um 8 hours a week. So we would go 2 days a week for 4 hour sessions. So on top of me trying to work, um being a single parent, and thank God for my mom, because she was, busing back and forth, picking up. And at the time, the boys were not in a school because, that was a whole nother thing, trying to figure out what what school we're going to, what is going to work as far as a classroom setting, preschools. With my oldest, I tried a private preschool, and that really didn't work out. They would send him home, even though it was supposed to be for kids with exceptional needs, and that was their target audience. Um, they would send him home from school. He could only stay 2 hours out of the 4 hours that I was paying for. So, and then he kind of got started recognizing that he was leaving before the other kids. Um, and so that was really upsetting for him. And then I also found out they were keeping him in a high chair for half of the time that he was there. Like, just he was just strapped in a high chair, and I was like, because you know how daycare is kind of like post pictures on Facebook. This is kind of a new thing, and so they post classroom pictures of what they're doing. So I would kind of follow during the day, just see what are they working on, what are they doing. And I noticed I wouldn't see him in the pictures all the time. Like he would, where's my kid? I was like, well, maybe he's just over there doing something. But um something told me, look again. And I looked, and I saw his foot hanging off over here in the corner of the picture. And it was in that little part of the high chair, the bottom part where you rest your feet.
Right.
And I was like, why is he, you know, just over here by himself? So end up pulling him out of, that program. And um we did homeschool for a while, which was what worked best. And
So
then
explain to me, how did you manage to work full time and do homeschool?
my mom helped.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom is a retired teacher, so she was helping me. She would do little activities during the day, and then I was teaching community college at the time,
Okay.
so my hours were a little bit more flexible.
Okay.
So I was able to, come home. When I came home, I was able to, do a couple hours at
Mm.
home. And so we were doing like that, just trying to make it work. And at this time he's like going into 4 year old. So we're still pre-K. We haven't tried to do like,
Okay.
public school.
You're just saying in-home care at this point.
Just
Gotcha.
in
Okay.
home. Yep. So it came time for kindergarten, and so if he was kindergarten, my youngest was K3.
Mhm.
So um, the school that I went to, the district that I went to, I was like, well, we can give it a try.
Mhm.
And I had I had hopes for it because my mom worked there, I graduated there, I kind of know all the people,
Mhm.
and so I was hopeful that it would be a good situation. But as usual in these IEP meetings, we try to come to an agreement and do what's best for our kids and
Mhm.
come up with the plans. And then it's like they go out of the window once you leave the room sometimes.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't really it wasn't a conducive situation. We tried to do the regular classroom and um for my oldest a kindergarten class, and I couldn't get them to assign him like a paraprofessional because they were like, we don't have data for that, even
Okay.
though we have, you know, therapy data that states, well, they were like, we can't use that. And so we have to use, go off of our own data, and we have to observe him first. And so after the first 2 days, they recommended that he be moved to a self-contained class. Um, so I was like, well, if that's, for the best and he's gonna get the best in there, or you know, so I'll
So
go along with it.
in case anyone's listening that doesn't know what a self-contained class is, so you have general education classes, and that's, everyone's there, and oftentimes children with disabilities will be in those classes, and they'll have either push in or pull out services. So
Mhm.
push in means that the specialist is going into the classroom and she's co-teaching, or he's co-teaching with the general education teacher. So they may small group them, they may be working on your child's objective, but they're working with a group of children. Or there may be pull-out services where they then go into the classroom, retrieve your child, and for 30 minutes or so, they may do small group work in a separate classroom and then return to the general education classroom. In a self-contained classroom, there are all children there with similar needs, and they're in this classroom receiving services that are based on their needs. So they are not in a general education classroom. All right.
Yes. So I didn't, I had an issue with it, but as long as, he was going to be getting what he needed and have someone that was really going to work with him, then I was like, okay, well, we'll give it a try. And it just wasn't the case. He hated going, and my youngest is down the hall in a K3 class, which they don't have a self-contained for that age group.
Mhm.
And so he was in a gen ed K3 class. Um, and so neither one of them really enjoyed it. Um, my oldest eloped, he left um, the campus, and that was kind of like the last straw for me. The teacher would send me these long essays of everything that he would do wrong through the day, and and sit behind her desk. She would sit at her desk to teach her kids. And so I just didn't feel like that environment was conducive, and I didn't I just I didn't want to force them to go somewhere where they didn't feel like they were comfortable, nor where they didn't have people that I felt like were looking out for their best interest. And my kids are real empaths. That's kind of something that I noticed
Mhm.
with them. And generally, when they don't take to someone or want to be around a person, it's usually for a reason that I'm not seeing. Um, and so I try to, be observant of that and not just say, oh, it's just them being autistic and they don't want to be socially around people. It's a little different than I am socially overwhelmed and I don't want to be around people versus I don't really think this person has my best interest at heart. So I try to take notice of that. And it took me a while to learn that from them. And so I didn't want to force it. And I said, well, let's pick up and move. really have anything that's just holding me here. Um, my job, it was good and I enjoyed it, but it
Mhm.
wasn't something that I had to have. I was okay. And so we moved somewhere else to another district for the services, because thought it was going to be great and better. And it was for a while. We had great teachers, and that's really the big thing. Just having and finding that person that really understands your kid, you know,
Mhm.
and takes the time to understand them. Um, that is, I guess, a rare commodity, because it's been hard to to find. But once you do find it, you hate to let it go. And so we had some really good years, where we were in Madison County, and then our teachers left, and so that is always hard. And
Right.
so in that place, we weren't able to get the therapy services because we moved to a bigger city, and so that means you got more kids on the waiting list now. And so
Right.
now we're not in our private therapies, and I have to depend on the school district for everything: the speech, the OT, the behavioral, and then the classroom setting. And so that put a little bit more pressure on me, because now I have to make sure that, or try to figure out things I can do at home, because we're not getting that outside extra,
Right.
and that's so important. Um
Kendra, I feel like as I'm listening to your story, I feel a need to contextualize some of the things that you were
yeah.
saying. Um, I am the mother of one child on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
And the only mothering experience I've ever had is that of a mother of a child on the autism spectrum. I have no idea what it's like to parent a typically developing child.
Mhm.
The only frame of reference I have is early childhood and elementary are my background. So I understand and I happen to know children. What's your what's your education background? What grade level? Are you
um
secondary?
Yeah, I've mostly been secondary.
Oh,
The youngest children that I've come in contact with are either through, like, private lessons or something like that I might do on the side. But for the most part, I've been 6th through 12th grade, and then some you know, uh community college. So I've had the upper end.
so we're going to take that information. So
Hmm.
we have here a young woman who's given birth to one child and discovers that that child is on the autism spectrum,
Right.
then gives birth to a second child,
Hmm.
and that child is also on the autism spectrum.
Right.
While you're an educator, you're middle grades to higher ed. So you don't have early childhood education experience. You
Hmm.
don't have child development experience. So the only frame of reference you have, other than the exposure that you saw from your mother being a special educator, are the children that you currently have.
Correct.
Correct. So now you're trying to navigate a school system and navigate a medical professions and allied health services with two children on the spectrum. You have no working knowledge of child development, nor do you understand early childhood education.
No.
Friend,
No. It's
your plate was full. So, and the reason why I want to say that is because I don't want anyone to hear this and say, well, she's saying this didn't work and this didn't work and this didn't work. The whole purpose of this podcast, oh Lord Jesus, is to put yourself in the shoes of another.
yes.
So I am processing this information not through the lens of somebody who knows and understands early education and child development, because that was one of the things that was a privilege of mine, that I
Yeah.
knew in a lot of ways what I was looking at or what I was supposed to see for
Mhm.
children. Um, so I guess the thing that I feel the need to say is not to other mothers, but to any service provider that may be listening. we have to take into consideration, because I consider myself a service provider as well, that families' pathways to us are different.
Yes.
Their experiences are different. Their knowledge is different.
Yes.
And when you have someone who, we already have these things called hidden responsibilities that are embedded into parenting a child with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have double that. So
Yeah.
that's two OTs, two physical therapy, two ABA, two teachers sending you essays.
Yes. Two IEP meetings. Two. So yeah. So it, not to mention the stuff that typically developing children have to do. You have to do the doctor's appointments and the dentist appointments and um the haircuts and the, just the regular day to day.
You're single. You're single. You're doing this as a single mother, and you've already relocated to a city without the support of your mom because you thought that would be a better educational. Lord Jesus.
Yes. Yes. It is, and was, and still is difficult, and I'm not gonna lie, like, it's hard. There's no other way for me to put it. It is hard. Even when I told my mom the other day, I'm like, it's just like trying to put a fitted sheet on and it's the wrong size for the mattress. And you get two of the corners on, and then once you get around to the other side to put the other one on, then the other one pop off. It's constant just trying to navigate every day. Like the things that I have to think about in a day's time exhaust me. Just I have to be 12,000 steps ahead of everyone. We can't go this place because my kids only, they're on an eating schedule and they only eat certain things, and I gotta be able to microwave it, and we can't stop at the Chick-fil-A and get food somewhere. We can't, go to everybody's birthday party if it's, not fenced in, or not, if there's a pool, or because it's just me and I gotta watch two of mine. Like, I people ask me all the time, why do you still dress your kids alike and they're older? Because one of them may run off and I don't remember what they're wearing, so I dress my kids alike for a safety
Wow.
reason.
Wow.
Because if one of them runs away, then if I still have the other one, then this is what he's wearing, and I can remember that. Like, it's for safety reasons when we go out in public. Um, it's finding, I the other night I needed something from the store, and you know I can't call anybody to come over if it's after bedtime, or even if it's not after bedtime, and
Mhm.
I have to make a whole plan for us to go pick up an item from the store, make sure I got the snacks and the tablets are charged, and is it a place that's got buggies? Because my youngest, he gets anxiety walking through a store, and my oldest gets excited and he wants to run and see everything. So I put them both in the buggy, and people stare, why you got those big kids in the buggy? Because I don't have an adaptive stroller, because they don't give you a double adaptive stroller. They'll give you two, one single. Medicaid will give you one for each, but not a double. So it's just, you know, little things that people kind of take for granted. And even having a conversation with a person that has, you know, neurotypical or typically developing kids,
Mhm.
even though we have a lot of things in common and we go through some of the same things, sometimes when people know your kids have autism, they feel like that your parenting journey is never the same as theirs. Like your kids will never have anything in common or anything like that. And that gets lonely. It's isolating. Um because you have people that assume that it's like if they're near you, then or your kids are near theirs, then the autism will rub off or something. um and because I have relatives that won't let their kids play with mine. I have, people that just don't get it. We've been put out of churches. I've played for a church, and they'll say, well, your kids can't stay in the sanctuary or whatever. I couldn't bring them with me, and we've been put out of after school programs that's supposed to be for all children, because it's it's just it's really eye opening, the fact that we've come so far but we haven't, as a society and as people, and how um unfeeling people can be toward children.
Mhm.
And not everybody. we
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
you know we've come across people that we love and we so cherish, and those people end up becoming like part of our team, and we love them dearly, but those people are actually just few and far in between. And back to having to, and just trying to do the day to day, like for our therapy situations. When we were on the waiting list in the last city we lived in, they would call me and be like, I have a slot, but it's only for one. And I'm like, how do I choose which kid can go to therapy? I'm like, just don't call me, I have two. And they'll be like, yeah, we know, well, we can get this one started. I'm like, that's not gonna work for me. And that's not even fair to my kids, that I have to pick which one can go to therapy right now, and then who knows when the next one can. And if there are two slots, then one is on some random day, and then there's another one at a different time. And so now the boys are all confused, because if we go to that place or go to therapy, they're assuming both of us are supposed to
Right.
go. So even now that we have a place where they can go at the same time, if one of them is sick, then I don't let the other one go, because or something is happening with one to where one can't go and the other one can, I just cancel, because they're so used to, if we go this place, I can't leave one at home, because it's just me, so I gotta bring them with me.
Right.
So
And
we
so I'm
just,
going to say something here too, because I feel like I need to contextualize. I don't want you to
yes,
qualify any part of your story, but
yes.
there are certain things where I will offer explanation or some context or insight.
Mhm.
Uh, Children on the autism spectrum, many children on the autism spectrum, get very accustomed to routine.
Yes.
And so when someone's routine is broken, they may have a reaction to it. And
Mhm.
oftentimes those reactions are emoting large, big emotions.
Mhm.
So, what Kendra is saying, in order to mitigate those big emotions or potential meltdowns, or however you want to describe them, she's like, it would be in the best interest just to cancel the visit than to take one child and the other can't go because he's ill. And then, on top of being ill, now he has really big emotions that his body may not be able to regulate. And depending on the child, it may take minutes or it may take hours to
Yes.
get back to calm. So if
Mhm.
I have a 30-minute appointment on the other side of town, I could take one child there. That child can go in for the appointment, but now I have 2 hours with another child who's having really big, who's, and in Kendra's words, who may be screaming. So it's not as simple as saying, well, just take one and wait in the car with the other. There are so many things that you have to think about when you have children who have very particular needs.
Correct.
Our friend.
Yes. It's and a lot of people would say, well, I've heard people say, well, I'd never do that. They just have to get used to it. Or they just want their way, or, they're being spoiled. And it's so much more than that. Like,
More.
if we as adults consider how anxious we really feel when we have to go out of our way to do something that we didn't plan to do, and how annoyed we are, and how people will complain about it all the time on Facebook, or social media, and your day is kind of disrupted. You're over the whole day because this one thing has disrupted your plans that you had.
Mhm.
Well, imagine not being able to verbalize the fact that you're annoyed that something has changed,
Mhm.
or imagine not understanding why it has to change, or what are we even doing, like,
Mhm.
um and then being so young to the point where you don't really know and understand emotions yet. You just know that I feel what I feel, and I don't know how. I can't verbalize it, and I don't really know exactly what it means. And so, if you consider all of those things, then is it really, a kid being spoiled? Are they really being spoiled, or are they really just trying to have their way, or are they just being human beings? You
Yeah,
know,
they're just being human beings. And one of the things that now you're kind of stepping into like child development. Um, Children have every emotion that we have as adults. We all have the same, emotions, and there's an emotion wheel that kind of gives names to certain emotions.
right,
However, as adults, we have two things. We have voice and we have agency. So
hmm
I can tell you that what you're doing is something that I don't like. That's using my voice. And with pairing that with agency, not only can I tell you, but then I can act and separate myself from the situation or make the choice to act the choice like I don't want to participate in this, or I'm going to do things differently. Now, there's limited agency when you are a child because you are in the care of someone else. And
right,
then there's limited voice if you are what some consider nonverbal. You don't use receptive and expressive language. So, with that, you are in this body having these really big emotions, and you are limited in the ways that you can communicate them. So they may come out in tantrums, what people may describe as tantrums, what someone may describe as a meltdown, what someone may describe as a fit. All of those things are attempts to communicate something. So now, if you are the mother of a child with disabilities, you are now trying to decipher what your child is communicating. And because it's pulling on your heartstring, you don't want to ever see your child that uncomfortable.
right. If
There
I
are
can
people
prevent it, then you
that,
know,
so
why?
if I can do something to prevent it, I'm going to do it. And other people may see that as spoiling a child. And I see that as caring for a child the way that child needs and deserves to be cared for.
Right, or at least until they reach a level of some sort of maturity and understanding, to where they can somehow communicate it differently, which is where, the therapies come in. And then sometimes just with age and developing and them learning that, mommy's not gonna take me anywhere or do anything that's going to harm me, or I can trust mommy and where we're going. And so, but all of that takes, time, for our kids to learn. And when they see, and I really think they see that mommy tries to understand.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
um that also, that bond between us is, is something special. I know I've talked about a lot of the downsides to it,
Well,
but
I don't want to call it downside.
yeah,
I want it's your truth,
yeah,
your reality, and this platform is here for your truth and your reality as it happens to you. If this is your life, this is your life.
yeah. It's a part of it. It's all a part of it. It's just all like you said, life. And
Mhm.
uh we have we have joyous times, and the
Mhm.
smallest things
Mhm.
uh make me smile and make me so happy and make me so proud of them. Things that people don't even think about. The fact that, you know, my kid followed a two-step direction, go pick up the cup and put it in the refrigerator, or that one of them decides to hug me, and it's not one of the every 3 to 5 business days that my youngest would decide, he's gonna,
I love it.
I get an extra day in that. I'm like, okay, that's good. Or when my youngest learned how to, he didn't quite learn how to blow kisses, but he tries. He just in the
I
back,
love it.
and so just the little things that we may or may not, say, or the little things that they do, they still bring me joy. The fact that, my oldest wasn't talking, and then one day I forgot to read the bedtime story, and he said, "Read to me." And I'm just like, what do I of course I'll read to you, but first I have to go and cry a little bit. But and it's just the small things, just knowing that the things you said to them and the love that you're pouring into them, that they understand it and that they feel it, and they reciprocate it, even though they don't always, they may not show it in the same way or the way that we expect. But just, it makes you appreciate those moments. You hold on tight to those moments because you know how fleeting they are and how few and far in between they can be, because sometimes progress is, it takes years or
Mhm.
months, or to see of repeating the same thing, and then they get it, and you're like, it's so big.
I know. I
And you just want to shout from the rooftops that my kid drank out of a straw today, and I'm so excited, and everybody's looking at you like, so.
I
But I'm ready
celebrate
to party,
everything. Oh my God.
you know. Let's go buy all the straws we can get. I'm ready. Yeah, I'm good. It's those those moments. It just teaches you in general to be appreciative of the small things, and to even it has even helped me as an educator to better understand my students, even the ones that are considered, neurotypical and
Mhm.
typical developing, to be more in tune with, that behavior is communication, and trying to find other ways to explain things and teach things. Like, that is my superpower. I feel like if I can teach my kids to do things, that I can teach any kid to do things.
Girl, you
That's
just said the
my
word.
thing. I'm like, it gave me a whole different confidence as an educator, being an autism parent and an autism parent to two that are totally different from each other. I'm like, I can do a classroom if I can do this.
I could teach Ricky too. I could teach anybody because I have to break it down to the simplest form. It has made me a better trainer. It's made me a better researcher because I assume you don't know. I
That's
find out what you do and I start from there and we go to the next logical step because I can't operate with assumptions with my child. I have to make sure that he explicitly understands things. I've never heard anybody else say that. That is why I explain things so thoroughly.
That's me. That's me. I'm gonna break it down all the way. So you gonna get it, you know. And if you don't get it, I'm going back to the drawing board. I'm researching. I am trying to figure it out. Sometimes things come to me in a dream, and I'll get up and I'll, type it on, make a note on my phone, and it may be something, for my own kids, but then I may take that and I use it, you know, in my classrooms, and I feel like I'm all the better, for it. And
Yeah.
that it gave me that, at least that confidence, because sometimes as a parent, I just it'd be days I feel like I'm just here and we all made it 24 hours alive, and I really don't know what I'm doing. It just feels like a whirlwind. But then you get to that moment of like, whew, okay, reset, and then, all right, let's try it again.
Right.
So I have that, bounce back. It's taught me to, just okay, give yourself a moment and get back up, try it again. And then I don't have a problem with repeating things over and over and over and over again. I'm good
Yeah.
with that. I may say it a different way, or we may work on the same concept for a month, and I'm okay with it until you got it.
Yeah.
So it has increased my patience
Lord
greatly.
Jesus.
So I know I am a better person for it. And as hard as this is,
Yeah.
uh, I am still grateful for the journey and where it has carried me so far,
Right.
and the fact that in all of this, I'm still able to help, other people. I try to use, what I do know and share what I do know with others. I'm on a board in my hometown of an organization for um, that supports and gives information to parents and families of people with exceptional needs. So,
Mhm.
and that's kind of difficult. You want to devote all of your, energy to your own children, but, you want to make it better for all children at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's just it's hard. And then with being in the school district and being a teacher, and you want your kids to have, what everyone has. You want them to get the experience that everybody else has as well. And so sometimes it's difficult for me because my kids don't attend the district that I work in right now. And so um, it's difficult for me to deal with that sometimes because, I work here and I'm working my hardest to educate and do for the children that I'm charged with. But yet, you know, it was not reciprocated for my own children.
Right.
So
Mm.
I'm just I'm just hoping and praying that conversations like these and that platforms like yours can really change and have, you know, lasting change and forward movement for children like ours, especially in the educational setting and just in society in general. Because it's just for us to be so advanced as a people and a country and as a system,
Mm.
we are so far behind. We leave our undesirable people behind and we put them away. And that's that's not, how this is supposed to work.
Right.
And I just want people to think about, others that are in our situations and that have children, that need other things besides, you know, just the typical day-to-day stuff. And um I'm just really hoping that things can move forward, and that I can be a part of that change, and that my kids can be here, be able to reap the benefits of that change, and not just have to deal with the adverse side of things, and the challenges. Everything doesn't have to be so hard for them, because it's
Right.
it's hard for our babies. It's they deal with they
Yes, they
spend
a lot.
hours learning how to just be what we want them to be, or what society wants them to be, and nobody takes the time to just be okay with who they are or
You
meet them where they are. So I just I just really hope that there's some change soon. Yeah.
know, you are contributing to that change now. A large part of change is awareness. Sometimes we have to tell our stories so other people know. Because when we go outside of our houses, we have the mask on and we're being who society wants us to be. And then
Yes.
we come into our homes, we close our doors, and then we experience the real of the real. And I think it's time for society to understand the real of the real so they can support us in a manner that's relevant to the things that we need.
Yes.
So, with that, Kendra, if you were to be able to go back in time and whisper in your ear at the beginning of your journey with your first child, knowing what you know now, second child coming, what would you tell her? What would you whisper in her ear?
um, I would tell her that, you know, you are you are doing your best, and your best right now is enough. And to be to be fearless, um and not as to say, don't be afraid of, what will happen in kids, and what will come in the future, but be fearless in your approach to things. Don't worry about what people will think of the questions you will ask, of the things you will request for your kids, of the boundaries that you feel you need to push for your baby to have what he needs to have. Don't be afraid or of saying, my child has autism and he needs these things. That's okay, and you don't have to hide from anybody. um he is a human being, and he is a kid, and that is the focus, and you're just doing what you would do for any kid that needed something. So whatever he needs, go after it fearlessly, uh,
Boom.
because it can only benefit him. And so that's what I would say.
Kendra, I have this thing just repeating in my head right now as I have listened to your story. I'm like, Kendra is tired.
Kendra is tired.
Kendra is tired.
And people don't understand when I say, like, when my I have a very few friends, and very, one or two family members that I really just talk to on a regular basis. But when I say I'm tired, it's different from, ooh, I've been at work all day and I'm just, whew, you know, exhausted. I need a little sleep. kind of tired. And no, I am tired from life. Life has lifed me, and I am exhausted. And I don't even know if that's the word. Like tired doesn't even feel like the appropriate word anymore
Mhm.
for what I feel. Like it is deep in my soul, if that's even a thing.
It's
My
a
soul is tired. And so because and people will tell you, well, you need to get rest. Well, how? When? Who? Like the fact of I have to plan in advance, you
right.
know, rest, or if I can even go and grocery shopping, because like I said, I have to put both of them in the buggy. So if I'm going actually grocery shopping, then I can't take both of them with me. I have to, figure out something. Or but I am I am tired, and I'm okay with being tired because I know it's for a good cause and it's for my babies. I will move heaven and earth. I went to basic training and joined the army at the old age of 32 so my kids could have insurance, and if I were to die, which I always tell people I can't die because
Right.
there's no dying right now. So but if something were to happen to me, that somebody would have to be responsible for my children. So I joined the military. And I um I am tired, and I see no end. So I just keep moving my feet. Um and I keep moving my feet, and I keep praying, and I keep holding on, and hoping that I'll get, to breathe in a little while sometimes, and then I can get a second wind and get a moment, and I can take a few more steps and run a little bit further. But yes, I am tired. Huh. And it is a different kind of tired. So yeah, I don't know what to do with it, but
I know you're tired. You're tired that very few people will probably ever experience in life because it's an exhaustion that's tied to your kids' well being, so you can't stop. And while, friend, you are tired, you are not alone. You have an entire, you have an entire village of mothers. You have allies. And I trust that God is going to put the people in your path that need to be there to lighten your load. That is my prayer for you. That God places in your path the people that you need to lighten your load.
I'm praying with you on that one. I am. And I'm sorry I laugh a lot. I laugh a lot, everybody, because
Mm.
I have to. I have to laugh because if I don't, I will be walking around crying and constantly just in a state of, what is just wrong with her. But I laugh because it 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 keeps me from going down
I understand.
that rabbit hole that is so very hard to get out of. That's a whole nother topic. Of that depression, the anxiety, the all of the things, and that we all experience, and I experience a little bit deeper than others because I am kind of I'm so isolated. So it is harder for me to come out of those depressive and anxious episodes. So I laugh to physically make myself have a moment of release that's not crying. So
Right.
excuse me if I'm just laughing and crying. I promise I'm not crazy, y'all. I promise I'm not crazy. It's just a reaction. It's the thing that
I
I do.
understand, friends.
Yeah, I'm not crazy, y'all.
You know what? You are courageous, resilient, you are steadfast, and you have shared some very intimate details that are not only going to free some mothers, but it's also going to inform some allies. Somebody who didn't think of that before is now going to think. Somebody going to see, like, get that lady a double stroller, please, instead of two singles. Please. Can we get a special buggy? Please, manufacturers out there, can we please? So there is someone who has a spare key to open a door for Kendra that will lighten her load. And I am praying to God that this podcast lands in the hands with the earshot 1 to 2 degrees separation from someone who has that spare key to open the door that we don't even know exists.
We don't even know. So,
We don't even know exists.
mm,
Ah, I am full. My spirit is full, but
yes,
you have a friend in me. You have a friend in me. You reach out anytime.
I surely appreciate you.
No, I
I
mean,
just appreciate you so much.
I mean it. It's not words. I mean it. All right, friend.
Yes.
So we're going to keep our conversation going, but we're going to say goodbye to the people. All
Okay.
right. Well, friends, thank you all for listening in. And whatever your faith is, if you can put Kendra and her boys in your thoughts and send the love and the vibe in their direction. And we are praying on that spare key, that door to open.
Yes.
With that, we're going to wish you all good night and bye, or good morning, or good afternoon, whatever time you're watching. Bye, friends.
Bye.